I am proud to be part of a species where a subset of its members willingly put their lives at risk to push the boundaries of our existence. And it was next to this little piece of cosmic art. It's a quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson. So it's just a lot more thoughtful art than you expected at the graffiti park, isn't it? It was for me. I was impressed. So, but there's a lot of just junky art in the graffiti. I mean, there's just graffiti. You can see some on the floor. But it changed people's perspective on what they were contributing. That site, we'll go back one more here. That site is being redeveloped as a microbrewery right now. They convinced them to keep the front facade and to build their brewery back here. The art park can move anywhere they want. The next empty building. Or they can build a wall and turn it into an art park. You can also just make it an outdoor museum. Anything that can be happily rusty. Jerry Johnson, who wrote in with a bunch of suggestions when we had this discussion at my site, suggested the rusted tractor graveyard on the empty lot. We can fill that. I don't know about your town, but we've got the rusted tractors covered. We can put that up. And I got thinking, man, the museum, if we let the museum have the empty lot for a month, they could come out with some temporary display of stuff that's happily rusty outside. We could totally do that. So there's lots more to do with that empty lot. Put a little teeny tiny stage in there. This is next to our library. Is that not kind of cool? That's the empty lot next to our library in Alva. A very small stage, but it's room enough for one performer. We could have a poetry reading. We could have one musician. Anybody that teaches a class in anything could have their students come and perform right there. Unfortunately, there's a fence across the front of it, so you have to actually, break in, but you can. Okay, how about some game tables? I loved this, the outdoor foosball. Why not? Card tables? Why not have poker tables in your empty lot? Why not? There's always chess tables in the parks. We could be more fun. We could put bocce ball on the empty lot, shuffleboard, horseshoes. I stole all of those from Jerry Jones, who wrote in. He's a former Oklahoman and sent me like this list of 27 things you could do. Make a beach. Why is your empty lot not a beach? Cats? Okay. All right, so I actually have an answer for that. Animal control. But in Alva, Oklahoma, we have a beach one day a year. It's called Bahama Breakaway. They do it for the college kids. They bring dump truckloads of sand and they dump them on the courthouse parking lot. Could we do it on an empty lot? And just for one day? Well, you can do it for a week. Detroit did it all summer. I don't care how long you leave it, but depends on your cat population. Possum and skunk, but you got to work with it. Maybe we need to make a little possum park on the other side so they'll have a place to go, and then we can have the beach temporary. And I've actually seen this done without sand, like they did them with like balls, like a ball pit. They charged money for that. It was in a big city. It was in London. It was like, we are having this beach. It was very organized. They don't have a cat problem in there. But anyway. Okay, we could play house. We could build a dining room outside. We could just put up tables. We could invite everybody in town to dinner one night on the empty lot. We could put up tables and we could invite everybody that works downtown to get together on Friday and bring their lunch. We could set up a living room. Lyons, Nebraska did this. The Center for Rural Affairs did it specifically as an arts event. It was an art project, and so they were trying to convene some conversations in their community in a very artistic way. And I thought, why don't we just do that for a month and just get outdoor furniture?
We've talked about a movie night on the side of a building, projecting it.
Wait, we'll skip over the exercise room to home theater room. Doesn't look like much, does it? That's a shell building. There is no roof. There is no building behind that. That front folds down and it looks like that. They drag them out their stadium seats. That's also a Center for Rural Affairs, Lyons, Nebraska project. The way they do the screen, they have a guy with an old 2-cylinder tractor drags the screen across the downtown. parks it in the middle of the street. They have signs that say, road closed, movie. Let's post those at each end of Main Street and keep everybody off town. Look how happy they are. It was great. So you can do a movie night. Okay. Now you can do an exercise room. Do not tell Connie I did that.
I'm telling.
That's my sister. But that's actually in our park in Alva. It's a bunch of exercise equipment just placed on a concrete pad. Could totally do that in an empty lot. Okay, so the movies. You can also build a hallway. I saw this in Ardmore and I thought, that's a natural hallway. We talked about connecting different parts of town. Do you have different parts of your downtown that are hard to connect? An empty lot may be the answer to moving people in a hallway through your downtown. So this one, can you imagine, just for a minute, imagine with me, this is the story, popping up, say, half a dozen vendors on this with things for sale, food, activities, performance, and maybe down there, clearly parking down at the bottom of this, so we can get people to park down there and come to our big event that's blocking off all of downtown, and we can lead them into downtown through this beautiful, what was, just an alleyway. Friday night venue. Look how cool this is. Okay, so those empty lots don't have to actually just sit there. Now, you could actually make some money from this. You could set up a special event space and charge people to use it. Charge people to do their classes or demonstrations, yoga on the square, yoga downtown. So this was actually a photography class that was being held. That one's in downtown Alpha. This is a former locker plant. It was the meat locker. It burned, it fell in. They saved the front and turned the rest of it into an open air venue, and they charge musicians to set up and have concerts in there. And then the rest of the time they use it to sell artwork. Go Eden. That's a great idea. All right. Porterdale, Georgia. 1,400 people in this town, and they had this huge, beautiful gymnasium gifted to the town in 1930-something. And it was this lovely big building, and then it burned. And so then it sat like this for decades, which is the burned out wreck. And then they spent money to just stabilize the outside structure. And now that's the food festival. All right, now this is my idea of a food festival. So from dead player with nothing at all going on that really just needed to be bulldozed, now it is a venue for events. People get married there. It's awesome. Here's another concert being held on that very stage. And you can see it's a green stage. There's stuff growing on there. So, you know, you don't have to make this, you don't have to fix it all at once. They just stabilized the structure. The Roxy Theater, the new Roxy Theater, historic building in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Historic theater, lots of blues greats played this theater. The roof has collapsed. That will not be a theater like that anymore, but the new plan is to open it up and make it an open air venue. You can see how much it means to the community and that we've got people sitting outside it even now as it sits as a ruin. So it's better to save what we can and use the rest as an open air venue. But we could make some money that way. You could make some money by renting it to a nearby restaurant to be outdoor seating. That's better than leaving it empty. You could, in fact, open an entirely new restaurant inside just the front. That's all that's left. This one is in Kansas. This is in St. Francis, Kansas. This is a town of under 2,000 people. They saved the front of the building. You can see they put some bars on the window and put a sign, "It's open, we promise." It's a coffee shop. And look how they did it. They didn't try to rebuild the building. We still just have rafters up there and it's open to the sky, but we've put a little tiny temporary kitchen in there. And that's good enough. As long as it meets the health department code and is safe and healthy for everybody, put in a tiny building inside instead of trying to rebuild the entire structure. You can see they actually used two. They actually have two little buildings in there. They didn't try to pave the whole thing to start with. We've got brick pavers and gravel and chairs and tables, and they're serving coffee. That's better than leaving it empty. Now, Texas took the burned out building and made a beer garden. Now we're talking. So this is in Paris, Texas, and that is called 107 Grand. And you can see, looking through those upper windows, there's no building there anymore. But they stabilized that facade, and inside is a party. So again, instead of trying to rebuild the whole building, we've got small temporary buildings there inside that meet the code requirements. They did pave, but you can see they need to seal that wall up or they're going to have problems with water infiltration. And then you can still see up there, open to the sky. People love it. You can do it. food truck dining. This one's in Altadena, California. And they actually had, now I know somebody will say this to you, so we're gonna cover it right now, which is, we can't have food trucks, this will hurt our existing restaurants. So I want to tell you the experience from Altadena, where the food trucks come in one night a month and the restaurants say that's their busiest night. Mm-hmm. So don't let them hand you that line of manure.
They do it in Stillwater, don't they?
Did they have a food truck night in Stillwater? Third Fridays.
Yeah.
Well, some of our small communities, all the restaurants are closed on Monday.
Which is such an opportunity. When all the restaurants are all closed on the same night, on Monday, why it is, we don't know, but food truck opportunity right there. Okay, but keep in mind, it just helps your restaurants as well. So this is my favorite example, and the good news is it's the last example. You've been waiting for the last example. Tiny business villages. I love tiny business villages. This is the coolest thing you can do with the empty lot ever. So this is the empty lot in Tionesta, Pennsylvania. Tionesta, Pennsylvania. Great little town. 500 people. Not a big town. Building on the corner burned. Across the street from this is downtown, and across the street that way is the farmer's market. And this is the dead lot. They waited 10 years trying to talk a developer into doing something on that. And then, bless their hearts, the Economic Development Group, their Industrial Development Authority, decided they would do something on it. And so here is what they did. They spent a total of $40,000 doing all the dirt work and putting in all the buildings. And here are what they put in. Garden sheds, storage sheds. Now, people said, we don't want you putting storage sheds over there. It's going to look like crap. Look at those. Those are cute. They're awesome. They put little false fronts on them so they match the downtown. And the art gallery and the coffee shop across the street suddenly are big fans of it. Do you know why? That thing is packed. That thing is full of people all the time. They actually set this up to be temporary, just for long enough to attract a developer. Still no developer. They're still there in their garden sheds. Additionally, they intended it to be seasonal, which is their thought, it's going to get cold. They get snow there. They're like, nobody will be here through the winter. The vendors begged them to stay open, so that now it's a year-round thing. The winery that's based outside of town that couldn't afford their own building has a shed in the tiny business village. The jewelry maker who couldn't afford her own storefront, she's in there. The Amish group is doing Amish baked goods. I'm in with the Amish baked goods. They're in there. So, and then there's the garden supply place down there that's actually just like cute things to put in your garden. They couldn't afford to do a whole building. So they are in there, in that shed. Businesses will come and go through here, but people will gain the experience. They will find out what works in the market. They will build up some assets. They will build a following. People will start to love them. Or they will find out this is not my thing. And we'd rather they find that out from a garden shed than trying to do an entire empty building on their own. So this is beautiful. Julia McCray sent me that story, and she said, really, they don't know it, but it's actually a tiny business incubator. And I was like, okay, well, don't tell them, but it is. It's awesome. The art gallery and the coffee shop extended their hours because this thing is actually open longer than the art gallery used to be. So they've had to actually be open into the evenings to match this. That's a huge win if you've tried to make your existing businesses be open in the evening. And they have Wi-Fi, and they have places to sit. They know what they're doing. That's pretty awesome. Town of 500 people did that. Pascagoula, Mississippi. After Hurricane Katrina, the Katrina cottages, little tiny houses, were built and used as temporary housing. Then they had a bunch of those left over after the hurricane. So they went through the emergency management groups, through there to there, and ended up in the hands of the town of Pascagoula. They took the big, dirty, empty lot down by the tracks that they couldn't fill, and they put tiny houses on it. They put them up on a platform so they're up high enough, and so there's this huge deck, and in front of it is a big green space that has become a community gathering spot. And businesses, retail shops, services, there's a photographer, all kinds of folks go in here temporarily. and grow from there to be bigger or stay in there happily for years, generating economic activity for their community. And so it's called Anchor Square. So there's the whole little square. When I talked about this in Aberdeen, South Dakota, 2 boys heard this story that were there as high schoolers on a scholarship at that conference. They went home and they talked to the guy who sells storage sheds and said, we need to borrow your storage sheds during our Christmas on the Prairie festival. Guy said yes. Actually, he built a fire ring with his logo on it, put a fire ring in the center because it was during Christmas in South Dakota. So they needed a fire ring. So then 4 businesses popped up in empty storage sheds in this otherwise just storage shed selling lot, and it added a new feature to their holiday celebration downtown. They had a photographer doing a photo booth, they had a woman doing baked goods, a person selling t-shirts that were home themed, and I don't even remember what the 4th one was, probably somebody carving fishing lures or something. So that's the kind of magic you can create when you stop thinking about only doing a moonshot. If you just think about doing the $100 business.
Do you think that's where the container business in Las Vegas down off the strip off of Fremont, do you think that was the idea that they had? Have you ever been there?
Oh, wait.
They take the shipping
There we go.
containers. And it's
Yeah.
3 stories.
This one is in Cleveland, and since they're a port, they've got shipping containers. But it's the same concept. We have an empty lot in Las Vegas that Fremont district, they're trying to restore their downtown and bring attention and life back to their downtown, the same as the rest of us. And so they have to do something that provides some anchors. Part of what they have are empty lots. They've got food trucks going in there, and they are using shipping containers as business space. If you have shipping containers, if you have garden sheds, if you have tiny houses, if you have a building you can divide up, you can make space for those tiny businesses. It's that innovative rural business model structure. You want to make space for tiny businesses. They only have to fill a few hundred square feet. You want to make temporary businesses, make it okay to try a business just for a day. You want to get them together so that they have and benefit from that critical mass of bringing everybody together. And then you want to encourage those trucks and trailers so people can pull together enough market out of multiple places. That is how you spread economic opportunity out into your community. How are we on time? We've got 8 minutes. 8 minutes. What do you guys want to do with your 8 minutes? You can't be tapped out of ideas, but you might be exhausted of hearing about me.
Question on like clouded titles and stuff.
Clouded titles.
We have a property that the VFW owns, but there's no VFW and hasn't been for eons. What do? How do you get a hold of that? What?
Okay, so I can tell you that. All right, so the question is, there's a building downtown. It is owned by?
It's just a lot.
Oh, it's just the lot. Okay, awesome. So in that case, I would totally not ask anybody's permission and I would just totally start using it. Who the heck is going to tell you no? When the VFW shows up and says get out, you can get out. Until then, you're good. And I would totally use it and I would be having like the Alice in Wonderland tea party and a dance there, and then Rusted Tractors are there next week. I mean, that would be my first approach with the empty lot. If you decide you need to clear the title, how would we clear a title that used to belong to the veterans of foreign wars? My first thought as a person that's been in organizations is before they went out, they had bylaws. In the bylaws, it probably had a dissolution clause that said who was supposed to get their assets when they dissolved.
It probably went to the state VFW.
And it probably did go to the state VFW.
The larger.
Yes. And so if you decide you need that title, I would start with the old bylaws and see if I could track it down that way. If there's really no organization left, if they've even still got a bank account in town, then you can, no, they're gone. Okay.
Probably a big outfit.
Couldn't the city take it?
Well, and that's the other thing is you can go.
From the VFW because they have a bunch of useless land to them that,
Yeah.
they're not even utilizing or developing,
Who's
or
paying taxes on it?
Right, and that's your avenue to try to,
That's the first.
yeah, yeah. And if if the taxes aren't being paid and if they're having to mow it, then eventually it'll come up for sale. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, and I apologize if you might have covered this at the beginning, but
Were you out? Did you?
I had to get water. What do you do if the downtown area has kind of been overtaken by homeless people and,
Yeah.
you know, the socioeconomic surrounding the downtown area is very depressed? Is there something you can do zoning wise?
Okay, so if you find that your downtown has become a depressed economic area, and you have people, and I've heard this done or talked about in, I'm going to go ahead and put up just one, that's that link that you were waiting for. There was a community that asked about this, that they specifically said, you know, there's kind of yucky apartments downtown, and so it's kind of, now, my thought here is not to start with brute force of zoning. My thought is these are people, and this is a community, even if it's not your community. And so I would start with it as a human question of what can we do to connect with the people who are already in that space. Before we say, out of our space, we want it for the important people, I would say, well, you know. So before I started with brute force, I would start with the human question of what can be done. And start from where it is and try to bring it up in stages and steps from there, rather than try to brute force your way into it and legislate.
Maybe a Habitat for Humanity type approach to
I would say find out what all the resources are that are available to the people in the economic group that are in that area. Try to bring those resources into play, and then treat it just like you would any other downtown in terms of bringing temporary activity, life, fun, things they can do that can involve people from across the community. Because it's an opportunity, food is always a good opportunity to cross boundaries in the community, and art, especially doing art together that allows us to express who we are as a community and who we hope to be as a community. These are starting points. Now, there are people who will, if you are in that situation, it's not a problem that has a solution. It's a predicament that will have an outcome. I just heard that yesterday. I thought it sounded really smart. Totally isn't it?
Unfortunately, in the town Lori's talking about, our city commission decided the homeless people were drinking water in the park, so let's turn off the water in the park.
That would be a brute force solution.
That has
Yeah.
been our approach for the last
Okay, so now, here's my plan always when the city officials are that block of cement and not exactly cooperative. And that is to go around them with lots of small, temporary, enjoyable things that people want to be part of and that show a positive vision of the future, because that will draw people. No one is attracted to the block of concrete except people who are already concreted. And so if you're doing the positive thing that's generating energy, then that's going to draw people to it. And that's going to give you the energy and the force that you need to move forward with something more positive. It's a theory. It has worked, but it's not easy when you have that kind of a division. And especially when you talk economic division, it's something we don't talk about in rural places, but the economic and class differences in our communities really divide us. And getting across those divisions is extraordinarily hard, but it is probably the most important work we do. And this is why I am such a proponent of the innovative rural business models. Because when you spread economic opportunity to more people, you allow more people to lift themselves out of the predicament they find themselves in, that is so much more productive than telling them they can't drink water in the park. If you say, I see that you do on the side this little tiny business that you're trying to make happen, a little side hustle, can you do it just one day during our festival off of one card table? And if that benefits that person and helps them strengthen their position, then you've done something very meaningful for your community. And you guys do this magic all the time. You do that. You spread economic opportunity throughout your community. That's the work that you do. How important is that? How exciting is it that you get to do something that changes the future of your community? And you do that every day. And it feels like you're just actually just doing the job and all the things. And when you go back, there will be another pile of paperwork that accumulated while you were gone today, and there are another 500 emails coming in on you right now that you're trying to answer even today. And so you're going to go back and you're going to get busy and you're going to have a lot of things to do. But you're going to find opportunities to weave these ideas. You're going to be weaving the innovative rural business models, tiny businesses. You're going to be talking about opportunities to do temporary things. You're going to find ways to use this. And you're going to use what Dave is going to teach you this afternoon about those new tools from Census that are going to help you to support those businesses and make them survive longer. And it's going to change the future of your community, what you do. I'm really excited by the work that you guys do, and I am really appreciative of what you do for Oklahoma communities. I'm from Oklahoma myself. I really believe in Oklahoma. We have a lot going for us. And I just want to say thank you for letting me be a small part of it today. Thank you.